I want to talk about the title of the last episode. It smacked ass, but you'll live with it.
It smacked ass, but you'll live with it.
Of course, that was a quote by Al Hampshire. He said it whenever he was taunting somebody else during a football game. But I realize in hindsight, it kind of became life advice from him. Now, if you've ever seen the show Deadwood, this is a very popular clip from Deadwood where another guy named Al Swearingen, gives Merrick life advice, and he begins by asking the question,
"Are you dead?"
And that seemed to be what Al would say whenever I would call him up whining or complaining about the melodrama in my life. I find it interesting that at the beginning of the clip, the way Merrick whines sounds a little bit like me on the early days of the Camino. Feeling a lot of despair this morning. I could always tap out and go through the rest of my life making excuses.
I'm in despair. The physical damage is repairable, but the psychic wound may be permanent.
You notice we both use the term despair, because life was throwing punches at us. Life is a lot like Jordan Mailata, the offensive lineman for the Eagles, when he was taunting the Washington Commanders defense in the NFC Championship. He's quoting Bane from Batman.
I was wondering what would break first, your spirit or your body?
And that's life. And sometimes we do feel despair, and sometimes we do need somebody like Al to set us straight.
Pain or damage don't end the world, or despair, or fucking beatings. The world ends when you're dead. You got more punishment in store. Stand it like a man, and give some back.
It smacked ass, but you'll live with it.
Enough of that. Let's go back to Kansas. What is that we see? Walking into downtown Salina. On the Camino, a town like Salina would be like Astorga, maybe. Not a tiny village by any means. Cool vibe, a lot of cool things. So we're in Salina to see my best friend Dave, give him a few things that were near and dear to our hearts, like my copy of The Essential Ellison and my Criterion DVD of If. Looks like a bunch of batting cages or just a place to train. A place called The Yard, a field fenced in where kids can practice hitting and throwing and stuff. It used to be a recycle center. And I used to bring in all our cans, our bottles, everything, come bring them down here and drop them off. At this recycle center one time, I saw a rack of books, and the books were all about to be pulped. And I asked the guy, is it okay if I grab one of these books because a title jumped out at me? He said, sure. It was called God's Fool. And what God's Fool was about a guy in Great Britain, true story, George Patterson was his name. He decided he didn't know how to serve God correctly, or he didn't know how best to hear the voice of God. So he decided to give everything away, all his money, all his goods, and just say, okay, God, guide me. And he felt the Spirit move him to just start walking out of his village. And everywhere he went, somebody provided for him. And everywhere he went, something gave him new direction. And he never wanted for anything. But the secret was he never told anybody, I have no money, I have nothing but the clothes on my back. He never told anybody any of that. He just did it. Made this leap of faith. And he ended up in Tibet, of all places, doing service there. And to me, that was probably my first exposure to the Camino without it actually being about the Camino. This is a story about a guy's Camino, a real Camino. And it's powerful stuff. And I rescued it from a recycle center. It would have been pulped. It's out of print. Nobody would know this book exists. Except a few people. But now you know. Straight ahead of us on this street, we're facing north, is the campus of Emporia State University, where I got my bachelor's. That is so cool. Those are my yearbooks. Yeah, just Emporia State. Yeah, sure was cute back then, right? Hey, that's my girlfriend in the lower left, by the way. Look, there's Corky himself, our mascot. That used to be the coolest coffee shop in the world. First bar I ever went to stood in that spot where all those long, tall grass is now. So in this grassy area here, there used to be my favorite bar. It was called Bruff's, then it was called Night Moves, then it was called Bruff's again. That bar was called Lariat. Right here, 325 and a half, you took some stairs upstairs to those rooms. And right up there is where I first got sober. This is the Emporia State University campus. As you can see, it's kind of a pretty campus. It's a small campus. Plum Hall is beautiful. I was going to show you beautiful Wooster Lake on campus, but it looks like they're doing some refurbishing and it's a mess. This bridge over here, the legend had it that if you kissed somebody on that bridge, you would end up married. And I kissed a number of women there because I was desperate for a long-term partner. None of them took. So when Lauren and I were dating and I brought her up here, I walked her out on the bridge, told her the legend, and then she leaned in for a kiss and I said, I've tried it, it doesn't work, I don't want to jinx this. I noticed a coffee truck in front of Plum Hall. We didn't have those when I was in school. But then again, this street, which used to be lined with bars, is now lined with coffee shops, a sign of the shifting culture. We are now in El Dorado, Kansas, where I grew up. Taking this cool picture of Clint Eastwood down to a friend of mine who loves Clint Eastwood. This hung in my garage for years. Go have a cup of coffee, have a proper giggle. Gonna go visit the house briefly where I grew up. 10 years ago I was here and I made note of this hedgerow. And the first time I saw Halloween, the hedgerow scene with Michael Myers reminded me of this.
Oh, look.
Look where?
Behind the bush.
I don't see anything.
The guy who drove by so fast that when you yelled at.
Oh, subtle, isn't he?
I used to walk down to that corner to go to the bus. We are on the street where I grew up. Right over here is the house where I grew up. The white porch back here was built up. We just used to be just a flat porch. I have a lot of pictures of us as kids standing on that porch. Over there on that corner, that used to be a big apartment complex. It's gone. That's the house, Baby's Breath. We shot there. We shot there. Also the Gypsy Moths used some key scenes there. There is a scene in Gypsy Moths where Burt Lancaster and Deborah Carr walk out of that house and they go down this street down here. But where they actually end up is in this park. So they walk the opposite way. You know, movie magic. Ha! I wanted to interrupt the video right here. I am in Spain. It is San Fermin. I'm cosplaying like the locals. I'm not quite a local yet. Anyway, I had just put this video to bed and then I got an email from somebody in Australia who had watched Baby's Breath. He had waited 20 years to see it because back when we were producing it and putting out promos, he saw those online. He finally, after 20 years, tracked down a copy, ordered it, and was able to watch it. And he wanted to tell me he enjoyed it. So I chatted with him a little bit and I wanted to share a bit of trivia with you. In El Dorado, the exteriors of the house were the old Gypsy Moths house, is what we called it, the house in the corner. My parents lived around the corner and we filmed all the interiors of the house in this house. This is the house where I grew up. My parents moved into that house in 1966 and remained there until Mom died in 2016. But there are scenes in the movie in the kitchen where my mother cooked, in the bathroom where I took baths as a little kid, and even in my parents' bedroom. That is, in fact, my parents' bed. And the kind of weird coincidence of that is there is a scene in the movie where our hero Jake Travis, played by Greg Yoder, is on the phone and the back door opens by itself, supernaturally. Well, the way we accomplished that incredible effect is we tied fishing line around the door. Well, the person pulling the fishing wire was my dad, hidden in the stairwell of the basement. So Dad is the ghost in this scene. A wet, cold day here just outside of El Dorado. Standing here, saying hi to Mom and Dad on Easter Sunday. This has been an incredible trip back to Kansas so far. I'm parked outside the First Christian Church. It's Easter Sunday. I went north to see my parents' grave. I want to show you something in my seat here. These are the two hymns that were used at this church, Hymns of Faith, Celebrational Hymn. They may have a different one now. They may not even have hymns. I think they've gone very modern. Both of these belong to my dad. Over here is a little kind of yearbook from 2000. There's the church. I can't take these books to Spain. It's too much weight. I'm not going to give them to Salvation Army. Who wants 2 old hymnals with my father's information in the front? Who wants the First Christian Church of El Dorado, Kansas's in the South? Who would go to the Salvation Army? Nobody. I'm not going to throw them away. I thought maybe I'll come by here on Easter Sunday, quietly leave them in one of the pews. Maybe somebody will look at them, open them up, see Dad's name, remember him, and who knows. It just felt, I prayed about it. What do we do with these books? Went out, prayed about it at the cemetery. Do I just go in and say, hey, I'd like to put these in the library? And the more I thought about it, I asked God, I said, I'd like to do this, and I'd like to be able to get in and out covertly without anyone seeing me. This house behind me is Carlson Funeral Home. I grew up 3 blocks and 1 block over that way. A good friend of mine from high school passed away last week. Having a little celebration of life for him there. I went in and paid my respects. As they say in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, we've reached a point where life has stopped giving to us and has started taking away. However, I prefer to think that we have reached a point in life where life doesn't give to us because we're giving back. There's too much left for you to do, and don't let me hear you say life's taking you nowhere. Pain and joy again.